In this video, I'm testing a new R290 heat pump from NIBE, the S2060. It's being introduced at this year's installer show in Birmingham and should be on sale later in the year. Full disclosure, NIBE gave me the unit free of charge and I passed it on to one of my customers free of charge too. They don't get to see the video before it gets published and they've had no influence over its content. After installing and checking the Open Energy Monitor data, I was blown away by one thing. There's no other unit I'm aware of that modulates this low, and I think a lot of installers and heat pump owners will be just as amazed as I am. Let's watch the full install, and later I'll give you my honest verdict and show you exactly how low this thing modulates. So that was a relatively easy two-man lift. No chances it's that easy with Viessmann or Vaillant or the older NIBE. They were at least twice the weight of this unit, so for our bucks, that's already a benefit. This is the house we're going to be installing a NIBE heat pump at, and it is the smallest two-bed you can imagine. Only 55 square meters, and the heat loss is so tiny. Using the new CIPC 2026 guidelines, it's 1.8 kilowatts. So this is a first look at NIBE S2060 R290 propane unit, and it's obviously similar to the previous generation of S2050 R32 units. It might be marginally larger and comes delivered without the front grille. I think it's plastic, so they are worried that if it's delivered with an assembled grille, that would get damaged in transit. The unit will go here in the back garden below the window. And the nice thing about those units is we can put them right next to the external door. We can put them right next to vents because NIBE is not worried about any exclusion zones at all with propane units. If you remember the other NIBE unit, it has a big air separator on the back, so that was making already a very deep unit even deeper. This one doesn't have it. It is all internal, so a major improvement over S2125 series. Just on the other side of the wall where the heat pump will go, we've got existing heat-only Potcherton boiler, 22 mm copper pipework going to the first floor, other side of the house to a vented cylinder. Great for us, means we don't have to do that much upgrading to the pipework, because 22 mm is completely fine for 2 kilowatt heat loss for us, so we can reuse that pipework as long as we can get to it and insulate it, because we want that primary pipework fully insulated going all the way to the cylinder, especially for hot water being done in out of heating season. Let me show you upstairs. We've got 2 bedrooms and one of them has an airing cupboard with a vented cylinder, shower pump, and heating system is also vented, so we'll be sealing the whole lot. So we've removed the carpets because we have to get to the structure. We need to insulate existing primary pipework, and the nice plumbers that originally installed this system, they've marked the boards. You can see where the pipework goes. It goes straight here, around here, and goes to the cylinder cupboard. We also have to run wiring from a fuse board over there in the front porch to our new board in here, and then power back to the external unit, so we do have to leave those boards. If it wasn't for temperature pressure relief valve, and if it wasn't for us having to insulate primary pipework, we could have gone up and through the loft for most of it. Would have been easier. Nothing wrong with running, wiring through the loft or even primary pipework. But we're gonna lift this up as neatly as we can. So as you can see, even on a simple job, I treat this one as a relatively simple job, there is a bit of disruption happening. Okay, that should do it. There you go. Cut over the pipework, and as you can see, it's all safe and not disturbed, although it's right under the board. I plan to run temperature pressure relief to the back to make it look nice for the customers. Not gonna work. I couldn't get enough fall without notching the joists more than 25 mil, which we can't do. And also, even if we know you do what you have to do on site and you notch them a little bit more, that wouldn't have worked either, because we've got pipework in a way and we've got steel that only leaves around 15 mil gap between the underside of the floor, and it's squashing the pipe, bulging over the pipes. Yeah, there's no way to go to the back. We need to figure out a way to go to the front. And we are so lucky that the heat loss is, tiny, and we can keep 22 mil copper primary pipework, because we wouldn't be able to upgrade it within the floor void. No chance here. We'll have to go through the loft and back down. So what I'm gonna do here, let me show you. I've opened up this space above the staircase here, and we're gonna run temperature pressure relief through here into the floor void. You have to go below those pipes, over there, and straight out where this window is. But because we have to go under those pipes, we can't notch the joists, so we will just cut them out. In the middle of the joist you are allowed actually much bigger cutout. Marian's doing rats. There's 5 rats to be changed, and outside, sorry Marian, sorry, and outside unfortunately that pipe has to go to the front. That's what it is. That's where temperature pressure relief will go, above the window to the right and down. I know, it's front of the house, but you have pipes with gas on the front of the house as well. And we really shouldn't have done it on the back. We wouldn't get a fall. And it would have to be 28 mil as well, because it's over 9 meters. This one is only about 5 meters, 2 across the floor and 3 down, so 22 is fine. Well, maybe 4 meters across the floor and 3 down. So we just on the edge what we can do with 22 millimeters pipework, including elbows. Right, accessories to be removed before commissioning. Right. So obviously this comes off. So yeah, we've got the air separator right here, plus pressure relief. So that is nice. I like it. It's not on the back of the unit like on the older unit, so it doesn't take too much space. Ben, how is it to wire this unit?
So it's a bit difficult to all the other units, having to take apart all the heat pump, undoing so many screws and everything. But the pre-made cable is good to wire in, and the bus is fairly easy to do.
It looks like I've got the cylinder piped up just for hot water, so hot and cold is done, not heating yet. So I'm gonna turn it on, see if there are any leaks, and finish temperature pressure relief and expansion valve and connect immersion. So it's Friday, they've got hot water for the weekend, and most likely come back on Monday to do the heating part, commissioning and insulating. Pipework is finished, and what's left to do is wiring, quite a bit of it. And if you look at it and start thinking, why has he piped everything in 22 millimeter pipework? I thought heat pumps, they need minimum 28. You size the pipework to the flow rate required, and because we've got such a tiny heat loss here, we only need 350 liters of flow. Obviously that heat pump has a minimum flow required, and it's around 500 liters, and that's purely for defrost. The wiring center or controller with the wiring center takes a fair bit of space, so you need to allow for that. I've got an error on the system already, so we need to figure out what's wrong. I obviously need setting up. Actually, it's green, so maybe it is fine. Diverter valves moving, everything's powered up. Let me set it up, and I'll see if all is good. So the unit's running on a test mode, 30% compressor modulation, 30% pump speed. At that speed, obviously, it's really nice and quiet, but I have to quickly go upstairs, turn the demineralizer on, and just use the fact that it's running heating, because I don't know how long it's gonna run with 15 degrees outside on such a tiny house with such a tiny heat loss. And even at 40% pump speed, we're still getting 13 liters a minute. That just shows you that you don't always need 28 mil copper primary pipework, and even 22 mil copper in this scenario runs the pump at a really slow speed, which is great because this pump is in an airing cupboard in a bedroom, so we want it to run low and slow and quiet. And that's the install commissioned and fully running. It's already run its hot water cycle, nicely recharged the cylinder. What is my verdict then when it comes to NIBE S2060, and how does it compare to other units that I installed, such as Vaillant or Viessmann? First, build quality. It's decent. My only issue is having to remove 20 screws to get to the wiring or to service it. And over the years, screws will go missing and installers will use power tools to open and close the unit, which is far from ideal. For comparison, Viessmann has 2 nuts that you need to undo, and Vaillant requires 4 screws. So this could be improved. It's too early to talk about performance, but knowing other NIBE products, it should be solid. The unit also has an unusual way of installation on the ground or base. It does not use anti-vibration feed. Instead, it sits on 2 rails that form a part of a chassis, so it sits directly on the base. Initially, I thought it was a design flaw. However, the unit design takes care of that, as the compressor and all the internal components sit on a large anti-vibration plate inside the unit. Controls. The unit uses a well-known SMOS40 controller, which may be on the pricey side, but the only controls that I can think of that are as good are Viessmann or Heliotherm controls. And now, finally, modulation. This unit does it so well that initially I had to check if my monitoring wasn't faulty. The best way to compare minimum modulation is to look at the minimum power input the unit can have and still run continuously or steady state. For comparison, a 5 kW Vaillant or 8 kW Viessmann can run around 350 watts, meaning that with a cup of 5, you get around 2 kilowatts minimum output. The NIBE S2060 6 kilowatt unit can run at 180 watts, with 150 watts being the minimum that the compressor alone can run at. And this means that it can modulate its output to around 900 watts. That is insane. I've never seen any heat pump do this kind of a thing. The job we just completed had a heat loss of 2 kilowatts, and the unit managed to run a 4-hour heating cycle with 12 degrees outside. What this means is that NIBE S2060 should never ever cycle, no matter how small your heat loss. Let's talk about pricing, because this is where it gets very competitive. I've been told to expect S2060 6 kW to come in at around the same as Vaillant R-Therm Plus 5 kW, and the S2060 10 kW to be similar to Vaillant 7 kW. That's very welcome, because the current NIBE R290 is a lot more expensive. You pay extra for SMOS40 controller, but you pay extra with Vaillant too. The NIBE controller costs more, and it's also a better controller, so you're getting value for money. Now, all we have to do is wait for the winter and study the performance. The system's hooked up to Open Energy Monitor, so I'll leave a link in the description below so you can go and have a look later on at the performance. For me, this is an excellent alternative to other units we have been fitting, and I can see us fitting quite a few of those NIBE S2060 in the future. So, now over to you. Do you think this would be a good fit for your project? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this video useful, like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.